Happy Saturday. It is 175 degrees where I am. Hopefully, it's a little bit cooler where you all are and that you're inside. Got some regulars today, maybe a couple new people. Who's going to convention next week? Anybody? Raise your hand or put it in chat. Maybe we'll do a little meetup or something. Meet up for coffee or say hi at the exhibit hall or something. Next year's conference is in DC. Well, really Arlington, Virginia, and I'll be the director for that one. So you guys
Woohoo!
can all come and laugh at how much I fail about it. No, it's actually really going to be exciting. We're going to try a couple different things, and I'm really looking forward to it. Pin myself up here. Yes, Larry, I will see you in Anaheim. I'm excited for that.
Stop by the Cybertuner booth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, got 23 people on today. And Ethan will be kind of in and out today. He's got a few things going on, but I'm excited to be with you. And we got a great guest today, too, also in the Midwest. So give it one more minute here, and then we'll get started. All right. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here today for the Piano Technicians Radio Hour. Anybody new today? If this is your first time checking in, hop in the chat and say hi, and everyone else can kind of say hi back, and we kind of get to know each other. If you are from somewhere fun or somewhere far away, you can comment that too. I'm in Omaha. Our guest today is from St. Louis, but I know some of you are all over the country and some maybe even the world. So this is a community. We can all kind of participate and have fun in the moment. But all right, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather each and every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. That includes manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, us piano technicians. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, helping each other to create an ever more musical world. This radio hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclass, which is an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from the piano industry masters without leaving your home. Find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclasses.com. Today, we have our guest is Joe Jackson. He is in St. Louis, and I was digging around on his website, and it is a family-owned, operated, and lovingly labored-over family business. Their roots run deep into the St. Louis community and beyond. They run a mom-and-pop shop where all work is done by family or employees. And from pickup to delivery, nothing is jobbed out to other companies. They don't just work on pianos, they serve them, and their philosophy is that pianos deserve respect as they are inspiring like nothing else in this world is. You can visit his website at jacksonpianos.com if you want to do a little research while we're talking. So welcome, Joe. Great to have you.
Good to be had. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm in my study, which is in the basement of my house, and it's nice and cool down here. But I had a couple tunings this morning, and it's kind of rough getting back in the car.
Yeah, it's about 100. I think it's supposed to hit 104 here today. So it's yeah. I'm leaving for South Dakota tomorrow. Gonna get away from this heat for a minute. So looking forward to getting out of St. Louis. Is a hot city in the summertime.
Yeah. I was in St. Louis for the convention. Was that 2018? Something like that?
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. All right, let's kind of get into your background. how'd you first get into all this?
I
When did you get
started
into it?
I started in 1997, I think it was. I was working for a rebuilder in the city named Julius Konopka. He's been a guild member for, I think he's past 60 years now. I think he may be like 62, 63 or something like that member. So he's been a guild member for a very, very long time. I wanted to get into them because I wanted to learn to build pianos. So that was the whole, I had an old Packard from 1900 and I took it apart and started putting it together and realized I was befuddled. And I went out there and asked him if I could work there. And he said, yeah. And I started off my first 6 months for free, then worked for, I believe, below minimum wage for another year or so. And then after a couple of years, he started paying me a somewhat living wage. And then I expanded to my own thing a couple years after that. So I worked for him for about 5 years before I popped my own thing. And have had 3 locations since then. We started off in an area in South St. Louis on a street called Cherokee Street, which is a really popular street now. But when I started there, it was very economically depressed, very hard to get people to come down and look at pianos in that area. And now we're 2022. It's been many, many years. Started off, I was just tuning in people's homes and stuff like that, doing repair work. As just myself, and then my wife helped with the books, and then we just kept growing and growing and growing. We, for a while, ran a daycare. I had so many people who had kids back in like 2006 and 7 and 8. I hired somebody to do full-time daycare work. So we had a shop with an apartment above it. And we used the apartment to take care of 5 or 6 kids. My technician had a technician, and a couple office workers, and myself all had kids. And then I hired that person to become my move manager later on, after all the kids got old enough where we didn't have to have a full-time nanny. And now we're 20 people strong, and we have 2 locations currently, a 10,000 square foot building in the Central West End where we do rebuilding and sales, and then a 20,000 square foot building in Old North where we do manufacturing, storage, and moving. And we're trying to keep expanding and keep growing.
Expansion it's fun. It's challenging. I've been doing some myself, and there's a lot of growing pains and a lot of things you didn't really think about. And were you hesitant when you first started expanding, or did you just kind of? It sounds like you've grown quite a bit, and there's a thing called risk tolerance.
Yeah, I have very high.
Like you're worried about like going under, or is this sustainable, or things like like the pandemic happens, or hits, and talk about that.
My risk tolerance is incredibly high, too high. My wife, I'm going to give her a heart disease. She is kind of the stabilizer. She's the rudder, and I'm the wind. And we work well together at times, but we do fight each other quite a bit. I'm not somebody who's squeamish about expanding and biting off more than I can chew. I kind of have, that's just my modus operatus, is biting off way too much and then working like crazy and teaming up. I do a lot of teamwork. In the beginning, the first decade, it was just solo stuff. I would bite off jobs I couldn't handle, get into the books, get into training, calling around, and a job that I can do in 4 weeks now would take me 5 months back then because I wanted it right. But it never deterred me. As I'm getting older, pushing closer to 50 now, I'm starting to get a little more squeamish. We're working on opening a music cafe in the next year or so, a piano cafe. So it's a cafe that is built around piano music. One of the big things that we focus on is pianos in the area, and piano as part of a culture and as part of a lifestyle. So in that vein, we've done a number of things to help propagate piano in the city of St. Louis. Namely, the first thing that we started in 2000, I think it was 2008, I think it was. I can't remember anymore. a friend of mine started this thing called Pianos for People. So we donated hundreds of pianos to families that couldn't afford them, and now we have a location that does free lessons. I'm not part of it anymore. I kind of got a little busy. I ran it for about 3 years and then handed off the reins to the director. We also have this program called Keys to the Community. In that, we put pianos all over the city at bars and restaurants with an agreement with the bar. Like, we put the piano in, we prep it, we make sure it's clean and regulated and tuned. Their job is to keep it tuned and to pay living wages to piano players. So we've got, I don't know, a dozen or a dozen and a half locations that have agreed to pay, and they do live music on a regular basis with piano players and pay living wages. No swapping a beer for music stuff. You got to pay good living wages for a musician. And that has been a very successful program as well. And these are all just trying to enhance the community, because we know that if we want to grow, we have to fertilize the soil. And we need healthy soil to grow. So we put pianos and piano players all over the place and propagate shows and whatnot. It's a lifestyle. It's not a job. This is what I do for a living, but it really is my lifestyle.
I like that a lot. It's you have, I'm not going to say a dream, but you have an idea of what you want the community to look like, and ways that you think that it would benefit everybody. And rather than just wishing for it, you actually put the steps in to facilitate it. And you, like, you're looking out for the musicians too. That's something that's hard, because a lot of people like want to do cafes and stuff, but getting a good piano, they're like getting it moved and getting it to, that could be an expensive kind of hurdle, which stops a lot of people. So it's interesting that you're just kind of doing all the hard work for the community, and that's working out well for you. That's great.
Yeah, we also do all of that. We introduce people. We're not a booking agency, but we introduce, and we're constantly fostering communications between piano players and venues. So a lot of venues will reach out to us, and we'll throw 10, 12 different pianists at them, and then try to line it up where the piano players and the venues, are copacetic with each other. There's that phrase, if you build it, it is no dream. So that's kind of our guiding principle.
Sure. I think that most people should hire at least somebody, and not necessarily like a full-time employee, but even like bookkeeping, right? Or marketing, or someone to mow your lawn. We should all kind of hire people to help us grow and to do things better that we can do ourselves. What advice would you have for someone, say that they're a tuner and they're just swamped with work and they can't keep up, and they want to hire somebody, but they're a little bit nervous too? What's some advice that you might have for them?
The first thing I always do with anything is I always crunch the numbers. I never make a move without crunching the numbers. I have to make sure that I can put the funds in the columns I need them to be in, to make sure they can work. So if I'm going to bring someone on, I first have to make sure that I can pay them a wage, I can keep them, because brain drain is a big problem, especially with piano stuff. You work with anybody, even if it's your accountant, they have to understand Baldwins and Acrosonics and Yamaha and the C series and the G series. And they have to be able to understand this on a rudimentary level, and training people over and over again is very hard. So it's a lot better to pay more up front, pay a higher wage, and keep somebody. But you got to crunch the numbers. You got to run the numbers through to make sure it's sustainable. So whenever we're going to do any kind of growth, I always sit down. I first start off with just a scratch piece of paper, and I write down the number I want to make, and I work backwards from there. So I say, I want this profit margin. And then I start going backwards, and then I see what it takes to get to that profit margin in reverse. And then I tweak those numbers, tweak them until I feel like I've got something I can actually create. And then I start looking for the talent. And that's how I've always operated. Just always work. I'm dyslexic, so working backwards is just my natural state. That's why pianos have always worked for me, because there's no top to bottom. I mean, everybody, the bass of the treble. Who says they are marked 1 through 88, but I don't follow that. It's all just open. always crunch the numbers. That's the biggest thing. Don't waste your time. Don't waste other people's time. If you can't make the numbers work, don't do it. And it's real easy to find out if the number is going to work with a piece of paper and a pencil.
Yeah. What about, like the time it takes to get your ROI? Because some of these processes, like especially when you're buying building or like getting equipment, that takes a while for it to, like, one, to be profitable, even just breaking even. Like you're training somebody new, that takes weeks or months or even years sometimes.
Years, yeah.
Like we just bought a new big table saw, and it's great and we love it, but it's gonna take us a couple years, But it's speak about that a little bit, because you've got you have a lot of stuff tied up, like you have a lot of capital tied up into your business right now. So what's kind of the goal for an ROI when you do something like that?
So when I'm thinking about investing in equipment or people or equipment or buildings and things like that, it's the same process basically. I mean, it's more complex. It gets really complex when you start getting into the weeds, because it's easy to say, I'm going to pay this person this, I'm going to